All right. Shalom, shalom. First and foremost, we'd like to give all praise and glory to YAHAWAH, BAHASHAM, YAHAWASHI, BAHASHAM, double honors to the elders and the apostles of great millstone that taught us this truth, and salutations to the hopeful elect that's around the four corners of the globe, and the elect begins with the 144,000. YAHAWAH, who the world ignorantly calls God and Jehovah. BAHASHAM is in the name. YAHAWASHI, who the world ignorantly calls Jesus Christ. The RAWCHAA, Dr. Shiz, the Holy Spirit. What are brothers of the great millstone Chicago camp? I'm the brother I want me to join with.
This is a brother IBADIA.
Come back at your brothers and sisters at the household of faith of the Hopeful Right Select with another lesson. And Lord, when we hope this lesson be edifying, the spirit and power of Yahweh Shai. Once again, we hope this lesson is edifying. You know, as you can see the title, you know, really talking about insurrections, man, because everything that's going on in Minnesota right now, man. Hey, what is the phrase? You know, order out of chaos. Yeah, order out of chaos. So ultimately, with these different protests, we know how Esau gets down, man. You know, he plants different you know, individuals within these different protests to ultimately get the sparks going. So ultimately, and what Donald Trump is ultimately trying to institute with the Insurrection Act, man, when they can't control the different crowds, they can't control the rebellion, they ultimately gives it in the hands of these troops, man. The military, exactly right.
Federal.
Yep, and these different things that's going on with ICE right now, you know, ultimately even, you know, kidnapping American citizens, man. And it's going to cause, you know, ultimately what? Insurrection, man. You know, you're going to have the people ultimately what? You know, ultimately fight against the government, man. Because a lot of these people think they got rights, and ultimately what? You know, they, you know, lean back on the Constitution, say, I have rights. You know, you can't do this, you can't do that. Ultimately, no, man. And we know this is all a part of Esau's NWO agenda, man. But ultimately what? You know, taking the rights away from the people and ultimately making you people become slaves, man. You know, what did Carl Schwab say? You will own nothing and be happy. That's what the top elite think of you people, man. You know? But, you know, I just basically, you know, I was just messing with ChatGPT, you know, yesterday, you know, something I was just ultimately, you know, meditating on yesterday. Because it was something I was going to do yesterday, you know, through the spirit. But, you know, the Lord set it up, you know, perfectly now. But I just basically put into ChatGPT, what is the Insurrection Act? It says the Insurrection Act is a U.S. federal law that gives the president authority to deploy active duty military or federalized National Guard troops inside the United States to restore order in certain extreme situations. And what we're seeing happen in Minnesota right now, man, we're seeing everything, you know, ultimately, you know, fall, you know, basically is getting out of control, man. You know, with this whole, you know, Edomite woman that ultimately ended up getting unalived by a nice agent, man. And all this is by design, man, because what happened? She got shot on 33rd Street, you know, and ultimately, you know, the number, you know, 3336. It's all a part of this devil's, you know, schemes and things like that.
Right, his religion, pretty much, at the end of the day.
Because you can grab 2 Corinthians, what's that, 2:11 real quick. You know, we're not ignorant of Satan's devices. But I'm gonna continue reading in this act, because we ultimately understand what this devil is trying to do, man. You know, he's trying to ultimately what? You know, use his martial law, you know, to ultimately what? To gain control.
2 Corinthians 2:11, it says, lest Satan should get an advantage of us, for we are not ignorant of his devices.
Yeah, we are not ignorant of his devices, because Esau Edom ultimately used the same type of tactics, you know, as he did in previous years, man. You know, with the situations with George Floyd, you know, with situations, you know, with coming back to this whole ICE situation, man. Hey, going back to 1930 Germany, man, you know. And ultimately, it's coming out now that Americans ultimately have to have, you know, proof of citizenship, you know, on them to ultimately not to be kidnapped by ICE, man.
And the whole thing's a big racket. It's just a big joke, because it's the same people who let all these foreign immigrants into the country, just so now they can turn around to have a reason to take it over.
Yeah.
To increase that grip. I was watching real quick, because I believe it was Colonel Douglas McGregor. He made a good point. You know, when you ratcheting up the thing and it tightens, and then it goes back the other way and it tightens more. So that's like the government's control. It doesn't go backwards. Once they get it, the squeeze just keeps getting tighter more and more. It doesn't go the other way, man.
Just to continue off this real quick, it says, what is allowed? It's talking about the Insurrection Act. It says, under the Insurrection Act, the president can use the military to suppress insurrections or rebellions, stop widespread violence or civil disorder, enforce federal law, or protect constitutional rights, you know, which a lot of these people don't have rights, man. It says when states are unable or unwilling to do so, And with the Insurrection Act, ultimately, Donald Trump, which we know he's a puppet, he can ultimately override, the courts, man, of ultimately what? Instituting martial law upon these different states, man, And this is all a part of the devil's new world order, man. And this is ultimately what? The beginning stages of Jacob's trouble. Because we're essentially in Jacob's trouble right now, man. Where the Lord is ultimately what? Esau is going to show his horns on a level we haven't seen before, man. And ultimately, this is what we're currently seeing right now, man.
Where does it say in Isaiah, I will set the Egyptian against the
Isaiah 19:2.
The water. Can I read that real quick?
Yep,
Isaiah 19:2. I'm going to just go to 1. And the burden of Egypt, behold, Yahweh rideth upon a swift cloud, and shall come into Egypt, and the idols of Egypt shall be moved at his presence, and the heart of Egypt shall melt in the midst of it.
Right, and we know that this particular Egypt is talking about America, man. You read scriptures like Revelations, the 11th chapter, thou shalt call, talking about that great city, which is America, spiritually Sodom and Egypt. So this place is spiritual Egypt, man, where ultimately what the Israelites are held captive in. Just look on the back of your dollar bill. What do you see? You see a pyramid,
Yep. So it says, verse 2, and I will set the Egyptians against the Egyptians, and they shall fight everyone against his brother, and everyone against his neighbor, city against city, and kingdom against kingdom.
And that's what we're seeing, man. Division between, these Edomites, and these Edomites are the modern day Egyptians, man, beginning with these elites, man. So ultimately what? They're going to be fighting once against another, man, because what did Donald Trump ultimately promise these, these MAGA Edomites? That ultimately America was going to be great again, that the cost of living is going to go down. America is quote unquote going to be affordable again, And I had uploaded yesterday, I seen this video. I believe this is a lady from Donald Trump's cabinet, how she basically said with $3 you could buy you a piece of chicken, a piece of broccoli, and a tortilla corn shell, And ultimately just making mockery of you people, man. And ultimately what? With these different things that's happening with what? The concept of taking away of the people's rights, ultimately mocking the people, empty promises that Donald Trump promised. A lot of these Edomites are going to be up. You're going to ultimately be angry, man. And you're going to have on the flip hand, say you have Jake that's ultimately what? Getting unjustly kidnapped, unjustly killed in the streets of America. And that's ultimately going to be a side of it too, man. You can actually read verse 4 also.
This Isaiah 19:3, and this, but yeah, man, Egyptian against Egyptian, brother against brother, neighbor against neighbor. That's not what we're seeing.
Civil war.
It says, and the spirit of Egypt shall fail in the midst thereof, and I will destroy the counsel thereof. And they shall seek to the idols, and to the charmers, and to them that have familiar spirits, and to the wizards.
And because we know behind the scene that these elites be conjuring up demons, man, to help them forge their plans. Satan, spiritual demon Satan, the left-hand side, man. But ultimately, they're in a trick bag, man,
And they are the modern-day Chaldeans.
Yep.
So these things are enchantments, like Make America Great Again. That was a big enchantment. And the elites, they even consider Trump to be like a master magician.
Yeah.
Because no matter what the reality is, he's very good at getting up there and speaking and making it seem like he has it in control. Everything's cool. See, that's what makes him that's what makes them enchanters, just like the serpent.
Yep. Basically speaking those smooth lies. That's how ultimately, Eve ultimately failed, and Adam, came soup by listening to his woman.
But it's a false reality.
Yeah, it's a false reality.
It's a false reality, man. It's an illusion. That's what makes it an illusion. It appears real,
but it's not.
And the narrative in people's mind it affects everything because they think it's real, whether it's real or not. This is a powerful enchantment.
Because what does it says in Genesis 3? He was more subtle than all the beasts of the forest,
of the field,
of the field, So he's very subtle. His word, because it talks about though his words were smoother than butter, what was in his heart, and it's ultimately what he's showing that sword now, man. Because ultimately Esau Edom is being pushed up against the wall. That he's going to have nothing else but to do is to show that sword, man.
Because he doesn't have it in control, like as they make it appear, domestically or foreign. They don't have it in control. That's why I said, see, I will destroy the counsel thereof, right? So they really got nothing to lean on but their enchantments and their sword.
Yeah, they're losing their power essentially.
Verse 4, and the Egyptians will I give over into the hand of a cruel lord, which we believe this is Trump through the Spirit, because it only makes sense.
Yeah, because even I was watching on my way home yesterday, I was watching the Apostle Tahar's video, how he basically said that Donald Trump is a very different person now compared to his first term that he served in office, man. And ultimately, we know that these different presidents are given the script, man, and it's ultimately to forge the plans of the banking families, man, the elites,
It says, and the waters shall fail from the sea, and the rivers shall be wasted and dried up.
And so we know that's essentially going to be that nuclear destruction, man. And it's Isaiah 19. Also, you can jump to verse 14.
And even when it says the rivers shall be dried up, also going into the commerce.
Yep.
And the storehouses are going to be found empty. The supply chains are going to break down.
Yeah, lack of jobs, things like that. It talks about that in Isaiah 24 and Ecclesiastes 12. 12. Yep. I think that's like verse 3 or something like that.
You want me to jump down in this?
Yeah, verse 14.
Isaiah 19 and 14. Yahweh hath mingled a perverse spirit in the midst thereof, and they have caused Egypt to err in every work thereof. As a drunken man staggereth in his vomit.
And that's what we're seeing right now. The Lord has put that spirit of division, in the minds of these modern day Egyptians, which are the Edomites, man. That's the spirit that we're seeing right now. The Lord is putting brother against brother, the brother read in Isaiah 19 and 2, back at the top, Egyptian against Egyptian. The Lord has mingled a perverse spirit in this land, man. People is, the love of many is waxing cold. Things like that. Ultimately, what? The Lord is going to put the spirit on these Edomites to ultimately what? Just to fully show their horns, man.
It says he caused Egypt to err in every work thereof. This currency is about to collapse. Let's not forget about that. The currency is going to collapse. Everybody's trying to get a hold of precious metals, which there would be a failure to deliver on that if everybody tried to get it at once. Everything is just a bubble. Like, it's just all gonna come crashing down.
Yep. All at
once. It's like so much going on, man. A perfect storm. Said Isaiah 24.
Actually, we can keep reading this Isaiah 19 to verse 16.
There's Isaiah 19 and 15. Neither shall there be any work for Egypt which the head or tail, branch or rush may do.
And right, this is what a lot of these people is ultimately uprising about too, because the title is Insurrection, man. AI taking the jobs and things like that, man. People ultimately getting laid off, things of that nature, man. And it's causing a lot of people to lose money, not have any jobs, man. And this is ultimately what we're seeing, man, because the American economy is as bad, is through. There's no coming back for America, because all the different promises that Donald Trump was talking about is empty promises, man. And ultimately, what we know that the dollar is on the verge of collapse, man. And it's ultimately what with martial law, ultimately being declared on the streets of America, man. And they're already going to be there. So when it's ultimately mainstream and everybody knows about it, man, they're going to ultimately have a cap and control of it already, man.
It says, verse 16, in that day Egypt shall be like unto women, and it shall be afraid and fear because of the shaking of the hand of Yahweh of hosts, which he shaketh over it.
And right, that's what we're going to see, man. Because even the scriptures talks about even men shall be afraid, man. Ultimately, everything that's going on right now, man, hey, this is where we're at right now, man. Jacob's trouble. The Lord is ultimately moving those chess pieces into place, man. But that was pretty much the point on that. I got something to back you up real quick, brother.
Done.
It's the book of Revelations 12. And let me see. I'm going to start at verse 10. Revelations 12 and 10. It says, and I heard a loud voice saying in heaven, now is come salvation and strength and the kingdom of our power and the power of his Mashiach, for the accuser of our brethren is cast down, which accused them before our power day and night. And that's what these devils are doing, ultimately trying to accuse Jake, put Jake in the category, calling, what did Donald Trump say? They're thugs, they're rapists, ultimately giving a reason why, these different things should happen, while, they should run, basically giving a reason why, they should run up on Jake and ultimately what, put him in prisons, unalive him and things like that. And it says, verse 10, verse 11, Salakia says, and they overcame him by the blood of the Lamb, which is YAHAWASHI, and by the word of their testimony, and they love not their lives unto death, right? Because it's coming to a point where you're either going to bow down to this system, or you're going to be what? All 10 toes down for your YAHAWASHI. Because everything is leading up towards what? That RFID chip, man. Well, because ultimately the plans of these elites is to chip the whole world, man. Right. And
they got to get rid of the dollar first to do that. So even that's really all part of their plan. Man.
Yep. And we know that some of us is going to be, beheaded, as it says in Revelations. Some of us is going to be beheaded for the witness of YAHAWASHI. Ultimately standing 10 toes down for this truth. Because ultimately, this is what everything is leading up towards, man. Martial law, civil unrest, insurrection, people rising up against their government. We can have that 2 Esdras 15 on deck too.
I got it right here.
Verse 12, it says, therefore rejoice ye heavens, and ye that dwell in them. Woe unto the inhabitants of the earth and of the sea, for the devil is come down unto you, having great wrath, because he knoweth that he had but a short time. So Esau Edom is pushing those, pieces into place, man. Yahweh Shai using Esau to push those chess pieces into place. Because even this devil know he has but a short time, man. The prophecies are coming into place. So he's trying to get his NWO agenda fulfilled before ultimately what? He's taking out of power, man. So he's moving with light speed, getting these different things into place, man. Martial law, control over the people, things of that nature, man. Pushing this RFID chip among the masses of the people. Because best believe they're going to use the military to ultimately what? To institute it, man. By force amongst the so-called American people.
You want that 2 Esdras 15?
Yeah, Karen. We could probably start up in that too. Because 2 Esdras 15 as a whole is a heavy prophetic chapter. Let me see.
Just start at 1. We could kind of just run through it.
Yeah.
All right, 2 Esdras 15 and 1. Behold, speak thou in the ears of my people the words of prophecy, which I will put in thy mouth, saith Yahweh.
Right, and that's what we're doing right now, man. We're speaking, to our people the words of prophecy, man, telling our people that the RFID chip is going to come to pass, man, that World War III is happening, that Esau Edom is going to come down with great wrath, knowing that you have but a short time, man.
Verse 2, and cause them to be written in paper, for they are faithful and true.
Yeah, all these things are true, man, because everything that we're currently seeing right now, man, could be found in the Holy Scriptures, man. So all these different things are coming to pass, man, without fail.
Fear not the imaginations against thee. Let not the incredulity of them trouble thee that speak against thee.
So ultimately, don't be afraid of the unbelief of our people, man. Just to back that point up, let me get Romans 3 and 3.
Right, because that word incredulity means inability to believe, which is exactly what it is.
This is the book of Romans 3 and 3. It says, for what if some did not believe? Shall their unbelief make the faith of Yahweh without effect? Right, so it don't matter if you believe or not. These prophecies will still come to pass, whether you believe or whether you don't.
Right.
It says, Yahweh forbid, yea, let Yahweh be true, but every man a liar, as it is written, that thou mayest be justified in thy sins and mightest overcome when thou art judged. Right, so all these things that we're reading about in the scriptures, man, that we bring out, these things will surely come to pass, man. Without fail.
It says, verse 4, for all the unfaithful shall die in their unfaithfulness. Behold, saith the Lord, I will bring plagues upon the world, the sword, famine, death, and destruction.
Right, and now we're going to see even more of that, man, because we went into the lesson on the way home the other day, talking about the time of threshing shall come. And that, what was that in 2 Esdras 5? It says the tokens, talking about the signs, many shall perish in a great number, and that's ultimately what's going to happen, man. Martial law is going to be declared. America's government is going to be, through. So ultimately what? They're going to use, these different military troops. It's going to be famines out here. You're going to have wild animals out here, man. It's going to be crazy, man.
It says, verse 6, for wickedness hath exceedingly polluted the whole earth, and their hurtful works are fulfilled.
For wickedness has exceedingly polluted the whole earth. Why is that? Because we got the Edomites in rulership, man. Job 9:24, the earth is given into the hands of the wicked, man. Because he even talks about when they put crowns upon themselves, evils were multiplied in the earth. And that was back then. So how much more now? Well, Esau has the technology to even amplify his wickedness, man. Yeah. AI, all type of the debauchery going on here, man.
Yeah, they haven't even really weaponized, fully weaponized AI yet at all. And then like they're hitting the Venezuelans with these energy weapons. So this man still has a mighty sword, Imagine getting hit with the energy beam and it's just fucking you up. You can't even do anything.
And I was listening to Elder Apostle Tahara's video on that. It's just, you know, a spiritual power on the left-hand side by the way of its technology.
Right.
You know, ultimately a sound weapon, well, ultimately, you know, you can ultimately hit a vibration in your ears. It can fuck you up, you know, without even seeing it, without even seeing where it's coming from.
Even if you, man.
You know, and just best believe that Esau Edom is going to use these said weapons against the public, man. You know, these robots, you know, you watch different movies like Terminator and things like that. Best believe Esau has things like that, man.
Hey, all over the Economist cover.
Oh yeah,
was robots. Look, hang on, am I showing this? Oh yeah. See, but yeah, look at this, man. Rockets, war. Okay, robots right here. See, robots, markets crashing. You know, in this right here, which we already know what that is. See,
can I actually find this video real quick?
Just nothing but end time prophecy. Just a big ball of end time prophecy. You know, But hey, before they made this little poster, the Holy Scriptures already had it, man. You know, and like the brother mentioned, our apostles on down, telling you of that these were gonna happen for decades.
Can I play this video real quick?
Okay.
Hey, because everything that we're seeing right now, man, hey, this is only the beginning. Give me 1 second to pop up.
Listen carefully. The federal stormtrooper militia that is wreaking havoc on American streets are not assembled for collecting immigrants. Make no mistake, after the immigrants are rounded up, the federal government will not downsize the federal stormtrooper militia. They are only just beginning. They are actively hiring thousands more stormtroopers. When they are low on immigrants to target, they will begin placing American citizens on lists and rounding them up. Anyone who resists or objects to the New World Order will be disappeared. The real reason this is all happening is because the American economy has already collapsed. They are anticipating civil unrest. The US dollar crashed years ago. They have been artificially propping it up by printing money out of thin air. This is what has been done to every economy that has collapsed right before the collapse. Very soon, toilet paper will cost $1,000 US. They pumped the economy up with printed money to keep the illusion going while they make power moves in the background. They took that printed money and funneled it all into the military and the big bullshit bill so they could fund the stormtroopers and the colonization of South America. The reason they are colonizing South American oil is simple. They need tangible assets to maintain wealth and power after the US dollar eats shit. Their Middle Eastern backers in Qatar gave them the blueprint for transitioning America out of democracy and into an oligarchy dictatorship by owning and controlling the oil and energy supply. They explained the collapse of the US dollar to the military generals after they turned the cameras off, and the military has shown it is loyal to the plan and is ready to take Venezuela and Greenland by force. The only chance for freedom and democracy to prevail is a populist uprising, and that must take place immediately. If they are able to establish their militia and or establish martial law, the common people will not stand a chance fighting with only pitchforks and shovels.
And can I just say this real quick? And this is all by design. You know, Esau wants the people to ultimately buck up, to ultimately that it can get out of control, man. So they can ultimately have a reason to mow down, the people, man. Put them in concentration camps, things of that nature to control the people. So Esau Edom is doing all this by design, man.
Can I just get this real quick? It says Jeremiah 3:23. Truly in vain is salvation hoped for from the hills and from the multitude of mountains. Truly in Yahawah our God is the salvation of Israel. All right, so this is not a joke, man. This is real life. We are a worm we have no protection from the sword of Yahweh BAHASHAM Yahawashi, which is our enemy. All right, so if the Lord isn't with you in this time, then what?
Yeah. And you're gonna be, you're gonna be destroyed, man. Simply put. Let me see.
That's why we do this work, pray for mercy, man. Repent, because this is gonna be unlike anything we've ever seen.
Yeah, since you said that, let me actually grab that Daniel 12. It's the book of Daniel 12:1, man, because we haven't seen anything yet, man. Because Scripture says if they do this in the green tree, what shall be done in the dry? These people are already losing their mind. As we see right now, these people is taking it to the streets. We see what ICE doing it. What ICE is doing it to the people. So this is, as the Scripture say, man, this is the beginning of sorrow. It's the book of Daniel 12:1. And at that time shall Michael stand up, the great prince will stand up for the children of thy people, and there shall be a time of trouble, such as never was since there was a nation, even to that same time. And at that time, thy people shall be delivered, everyone that shall be found written in the book, right? Because we know the only ones to escape this is the hopeful right select, man. So this is going to be the worst time in human history that what? You're going to have Michael the Archangel standing up for the elect, man. Any point in history that you look at, the Civil War, even worse than that, you look back at history of the transatlantic slave trade, man, when Jake was in hardcore slavery. You look at 1930s Germany, man. You look at World War I, you look at World War II, man. You look at just any point in history. I'm just throwing those few examples out of that, man. It's gonna be worse than that, man. That's why we're gonna need Yahweh BAHASHAM Yahawashi to deliver us from these calamities that's to come, man. That Psalms the 91st chapter. That's the first chapter. That comes straight to mind, man.
And this really goes into it as well. This says, verse 8 in 2 Ezra 15:8, I will hold my tongue no more as touching their wickedness, which they profanely commit. Neither will I suffer them in those things in which they wickedly exercise themselves. Behold, the innocent and righteous blood crieth unto me, and the souls of the just complain continually.
And right, I will hold my tongue no more as touching their wickedness, because we're coming into a time where Yahweh BAHASHAM Yahawashi is beginning to visit the world which he made. What's that, 2 Ezra the 9th chapter? So ultimately what? The Lord is not going to continue to ultimately, Lord, let his people dwell here, ultimately surrounded by this wickedness, man. His two-thirds of his people continue to strive on wickedness, man. The Lord is ultimately going to do something. We're seeing that right now, man. The Lord is making big chess moves. Judgment is ultimately going to be unleashed in a scale that we haven't seen before, man.
God. And it says, verse 9, and therefore saith the Lord, I will surely avenge them and receive unto me all the innocent blood from among them.
Right. The ones that have died in this truth, the ones that cry on a daily basis, man. That cry out to Yahweh BAHASHAM Yahawashi to be delivered. The Lord is going to avenge his elect, man.
Hey, how many Israelites got killed in the conquest of America, of the Americas, man? Like hundreds of millions?
Yeah, even more than that. Hey, because what's that? And this is a rough estimate. They said 100 million so-called Negroes was killed, just from a boat ride alone, man. They said 77 million so-called Native Americans was killed. Because what Esau would do was he would destroy the food supply, which is the buffalo, ultimately give diseases to the so-called Native Americans,
pestilence,
the Reubenites, chicken pox, things like that, man. So these are just rough estimates we're talking about. Hey, my honest opinion, this is me speaking as a man. I feel like we in the trillions, man, of our people ultimately, the billions of our people ultimately, being the billions, ultimately of our people being unalive, man. From our people coming over here all the way into now, man.
God. And then verse 11 is going to show you again that America is Egypt. This is talking about Jacob's trouble. It says, verse 11 or verse 10, behold, my people is led as a flock to the slaughter. I will not suffer them now to dwell in the land of Egypt.
And right, this particular Egypt is talking about America, man, because we know that after the first captivity of ancient Egypt, our people was never held in ancient Egypt ever again, man. Once the Lord destroyed that place, ancient Egypt was never the same again. Of course, you had the Ptolemies and things like that, ultimately, take control of Egypt. But as a whole, our people was never, held in captivity in Egypt like the first time, man. So this particular Egypt is talking about America. Because it says what? As the plague that's before, as before.
So it says, so clearly there's another Egypt. It says, verse 11, but I will bring them with a mighty hand and a stretched out arm, and smite Egypt with plagues as before, and will destroy all the land thereof.
Right,
so
because even in Jeremiah 16, what did it say? You know, it was no longer be said that the Lord liveth that brought thee out of the land of Egypt, but the Lord liveth that brought out the children of Israel out of the land of the north. You know, so out of this, the Lord is going to deliver us out of this spiritual Egypt. And another scripture you can use is Deuteronomy 28 and 68. We shall come into Egypt again with ships. And, you know, you go into that word Egypt, it means bondage. So we go into captivity again with ships. And one only time throughout history that we came over here, you know, that anything happened, you know, far as, you know, us being brought over here on ships, man. You know, the transatlantic slave trade, man. Because a lot of people like to say, just to make this point real quick, that they ultimately took a ship from Israel to Egypt. You don't have to take a ship from Israel to Egypt. You know, you can walk there, you know?
Yeah, that's not what that's talking about, man. You know, we know who the curses fits, man. The so-called Negroes, Latinos, and Native Americans. So it says, real quick, Jeremiah 16 and 14. Therefore, behold, the days cometh, saith Yahawah, that it shall no more be said, Yahawah liveth that brought up the children of Israel out of the land of Egypt, but Yahawah liveth that brought up the children of Israel from the land of the north, and from all the lands whither he had driven them. Right, but we're mainly
in America,
congregated in America.
Yeah, what most of our people is ultimately, you know, dwelling in, which is right here in the soils of America, man. It's going to be where the bulk of, you know, the deliverance is going to take place.
And it says, and I will bring them again into their land, and that I gave unto their fathers. So that hasn't happened yet, man.
Yep.
But
and also the fact that you know, we're approaching this time, man. You know, we're approaching in the worst time in history. But it says what? You know, it says, you know, in that same time, the Lord is going to deliver us, man. And during the time of Jacob's trouble, man, when all hell is, you know, breaking loose, you know, this chip is being, you know, pushed upon the people, man. And that same time, we're going to be delivered, man. You know?
Yeah. That's why it's likened unto the enemy coming in like a flood. When those troops come in, they're coming in like a flood, man. Now you look around and it's just everywhere.
Yep.
See? But it says what? The name of the Lord is a strong tower, meaning
you'll be on the safe.
Yeah, you'll be set on high. If you trust in YAHAWASHI, you're set on high from above the floods, man. So it says 2nd Ezra 15 and 12, Egypt shall mourn, and the foundation of it shall be smitten with the plague and punishment that the Most High God shall bring upon it.
Right. So, you know, what we seen in ancient Egypt, man, those same places going to be amplified, man. You know, the Lord is going to put the spirit on wild beasts. You know, the Lord is going to put the spirit on Esau, Edom, to, you know, to exact his will. You know, you know, weather patterns, putting people to death, pestilence, sicknesses. So what we seen in ancient Egypt, these things are only going to be amplified, man. You know, hey, because the things we seen in ancient Egypt was that flies, you know, frogs, you know, things like that. You know, those water turning to blood. Hey, the Lord is going to, you know, up those plagues, man.
It says, they that till the ground shall mourn, for their seed shall fail through the blasting and hail and with the fearful consolation.
Right, even these farmers are suffering, man. You know what is the Donald Trump, you know, promised, you know, different farmers certain things. They never come through on that. A lot of farmers is, you know, forced to sell their land, you know, things like that, man.
Right, you know? The big corporations are buying all the farmland.
Yep.
So it says, verse 4, woe to the verse 14. Woe to the world and them that dwell therein.
Right, world means destruction. So, you know, the things that's about to happen, you know, this is, you know, Ezra, you know, given the vision, he's seeing far ahead of ultimately judgment, you know, being met to these people, man. And it says, well, woe to the world and them that dwell therein, man. You know, destruction.
It says, verse 15, for the sword and their destruction draweth nigh, and one people shall stand up to fight against another, and swords in their hands.
All right, civil war, man. And that's ultimately what we're going to see. You know, civil war, you know, they're going to have the people uprising against their governments, man. Because a lot of these people, you know, the government, which, you know, a lot of these people had rights to begin with, but a lot of these so-called Americans are waking up. You know, a lot of these people worldwide are waking up, man. You know?
Oh, yeah, they know more than Americans.
Yeah. You know, so ultimately what? They're going to take up arms and ultimately what? Come against their government, man. What we call what? Insurrection and civil wars, man.
That's the only way America could end, man.
Right, because it's even in what's that, in American Constitution?
I mean, look how it was set up.
Yeah, yep.
It was set up,
and murder.
Right, and through insurrection
Yep.
of them going against
Yep.
their own
Yep.
themselves, man.
Yep. And also, even in the Constitution, what do it say? You know, ultimately,
if the government becomes too powerful,
yeah, you can ultimately take up.
You're supposed to overthrow it.
But the thing is, Esau is going to use that to ultimately what? To take control of the masses of the people, man. You know,
which we don't care about any of that. We just wait on YAHAWAH.
That's right. Scripture says, "Wait ye upon me until I rise up to the prayer."
Yeah, this is not our kingdom. It says, verse 16, "For there shall be sedition among men, and invading one another. They shall not regard their kings nor princes, and the course of their actions shall stand in their power."
Right. So MAGA used to believe in what Donald Trump was saying. Now they're ultimately coming up against what this devil is saying, man. Hey, JD Vance, they're not going to give a fuck what these mayors, politicians got to say, man. Because all of these different politicians and corrupt crooks, they're nothing but puppets, man.
Yeah.
You know, that's doing the bidding of the elite.
Yeah, no, the rule of law is breaking down across the board.
Yeah.
You know, they're
everywhere.
Not everywhere. They're not respecting international law. The citizens are coming up against the law enforcement. It's just, they need, see, that they're going to have to come and say, okay, we need order. Yeah. This is too much. See?
And ultimately what, we're having these different agent provocateurs within these different crowds, man. Whether the people that's marching wants to, do something or not, man, they're going to have these different agents within these different crowds to ultimately get a spark going, man.
God.
And just believe, man, with these different actors and things like that, how they ultimately, quote unquote, fake a death, of one of their people, man, that's what they're going to do. And that's ultimately how they're going to get the people agitated, man.
Yeah.
Whether it be real or whether it be a psyop, man.
And they have the technology to easily make it look like someone got shot or whatever the case may be. Again, these are the Chaldeans. They do illusions, man. Mm-hmm. But it doesn't matter because it's still prophecy getting fulfilled. It's real in the minds of the people.
Yep.
And it's really happening. So it says, but that's just crazy, man, when you look at how Esau Edom operates.
Yep.
Because he really manufactures all the problems and then comes with the
solution,
which was all pre-planned out. Here's your digital ID. They're going to say, oh, no, look, this is just too much, man. The people are going to be tired.
They are already tired of that, so we know it. Hey, how much more so when they continue to, more so when they implement this RFID chip, man.
Man, we can't even fathom, bro.
Yeah, it's gonna be ugly out here, man. Hey, even 2020, man, you even had to have a essential workers form just to go out here and do everyday business. If you was an essential worker or whatnot, the same thing is coming around right now, man. Hey, you're gonna have to have proof of citizenship. And ultimately, it was this meme. It was a joke, but this is true. He said, what it looks like living in America in 2026. And on his dashboard of the car, he had a passport. He had his social security card.
Oh, right.
He had his birth certificate. Yeah, he had his ID, And it's ultimately America's
crazy.
The world as we know is already a police state,
Yeah.
With different AI, Palantir, things like that. They want to know what you're doing at all times. And best believe, man, hey, we're in the midst of a police state right now, man.
Bro, we're just scratching the surface.
Yeah.
Like we read it in the scriptures and we understand what's coming from via the scriptures, but when it's really here, man, it's gonna be so crazy.
It's gonna be ugly out here. And if you don't have YAHAWASHI, you're not gonna you don't have a covering, man.
Right. It says in verse 17, a man shall desire to go into a city and shall not be able.
Right, that's talking about martial law, man, because just best believe these different martial law troops going to have checkpoints, between borders, between cities, curfews, Hey, best believe if you're not in the house, for an example, by 8 o'clock and you out roaming, man, you're either going to be sent to prison or you're going to be unalive, man. Ain't no in between, and these are the times that's here, not approaching, that's here.
Yeah, that's right. That's right, bro. So you got to fear YAHAWASHI.
Yep.
So verse 18, for because of their pride, the cities shall be troubled, the houses shall be destroyed, and men shall be afraid.
Right, because I did a lesson on the movie. The movie never came out because I believe they end up assassinating the movie director. The movie is called The Great State. And within that movie trailer, you can see ultimately everything that this devil is trying to do. If a brother, brothers get a chance to watch the trailer of the movie Great State, what do they have? In wee hours in the morning, you got martial law troops kicking in your doors,
right?
Shipping you off to concentration camps. And best believe these different these different trains that we see, that carry cargo, just best believe they're going to be used to ship people off to concentration camps. These different abandoned Walmarts, things like that. These different buildings is going to be used as concentration camps, man, holding centers.
Good.
Can I back you up real quick, Ibaya? This is the book of Psalms 17 and verse 13. It says, arise, O Yahweh, disappoint him, cast him down, deliver my soul from the wicked, which is thy sword. Yeah. All right, the Lord is going to use Esau to exact that judgment, man.
Yep. O Assyrian, the rod of my anger. The sword is furbished. It says in Ezekiel, the sword is furbished, is ready. Verse 19, a man shall have no pity upon his neighbor, but shall destroy their houses with the sword and spoil their goods because of the lack of bread and for great tribulation.
Right, because even the scriptures, we quoted earlier, if they do this in the green tree, what shall be done in the dry? A person that knew their neighbor for about, 15, 20 years,
right,
they're going to be fighting each other, man.
Oh, hey, buddy.
Yeah, because
how's the kids?
We're witnessing, the start of hyperinflation. Hey, what's going to happen when super hyperinflation hit, man? When there's no, food on the shelves. Not even talking about hyperinflation, when things is just out of stock, period. These people are going to be robbing one another for essential goods to feed their families and things of that nature, man. And just best believe you're going to have these different martial law troops ultimately guarding, ultimately unaliving people, because it's going to get crazy out here, man. Hey, because when a lot of people lose their mind when they haven't, especially talking about America, if they haven't eaten in a few hours. Hey, we're talking about days, man. I actually have one for you real quick.
Oh, sure.
This is the book of 2nd Esdras, 16 and verse 71. And it reads, I'm going to start up verse 70. It says, for there shall be in every place and in the next cities a great insurrection upon those that fear the Lord. Who fear the Lord, man? The Israelites, beginning with the elect. It says, they shall be like madmen, sparing none, but still spoiling and destroying those that fear the Lord, right? So it don't matter if you're an American citizen or not, man. Hey, because Jacob's trouble is going to consist of ultimately Esau, Edom, ultimately coming after Jake. Everybody's going to be affected, but the main people that's going to be affected are you so-called Negroes, Latinos, Native Americans, and speckled birds, man. You're going to be affected the most because you're the Lord's chosen people, And it said, and it reads, they shall be like madmen, sparing none, and still spoiling those and destroying those that fear the Lord. What's an example of a madman? It don't matter what you say. It don't matter what you do, how in order you are, and they still going to try to unalive you, put you in prison. Ain't trying to hear none of that. And it reads, verse 73, it says, then shall they be known who are my chosen. They shall be tried as gold in the fire, right? And that time you're going to know who the Lord is fighting for, man. His hopeful righteous elect, man. You got that Isaiah 59:19 real quick?
Yeah, I got it.
Then shall they be known who are my chosen, man.
Isaiah 59:19. It says, so shall they fear the name of Yahweh from the west, and his glory from the rising of the sun. When the enemy shall come in like a flood, the spirit of Yahweh shall lift up a standard against him.
Right. So when the enemy shall come in like a flood, because we're waiting on Esau to make the first move, man. As Elder Brother Benji, Benji always say, Elder Ratazawania, this ain't 70 AD, man. The Lord is going to perform miracles for his elect. Some brothers going to have spiritual powers. Some brothers are going to, hey, all of us are going to be protected by the angels, Lord, when we be the elect. So the Lord is ultimately is going to lift up that standard, man. Because there's nothing that we can physically do to Esau. We got fighters and things like that. Brothers can fight, but it's nothing carnally that we can do to Esau, because his weapon, his blessing was the sword, man.
Right.
He has ray guns and robots. It's nothing that we can physically do, do or carnally do, man. That's why we're waiting on YAHAWASHI to fight for us, man.
That's right. There's the next verse. It says, and the Redeemer shall come to Zion, and unto them that turn from transgression in Jacob, saith Yahweh. So gotta repent and just believe in Yahawashi Mashiach.
Yeah. And just to say, man, we're living in some beautiful times right now, man. Hey, things are happening, man. You know, hey, and the Lord is showing his hand, man. Hey, the Lord is, it's being evident because the last few lessons, the spirit been heavy on this lately, the end of a kingdom. You know, it's evident that our captivity is coming to the end, the end of a kingdom, the translation of kingdoms, man. Yep. You know, that's been heavy these last few days, man. You know, we've been talking about it. You know, the end of this man's kingdom, man. Hey, the start of Jacob's kingdom. You know, beginning with YAHAWASHI. You know, anything you got out, that's pretty much all I had.
Yeah, you know, it says Daniel 2:44. Right, because all of this is the beginning of sorrows, man. The birth pains, it's rumbling, the shaking of the hand of Yahweh on Egypt, but it's a translation of power, man. Daniel 2:44, and in the days of these kings shall the God of heaven set up a kingdom which shall never be destroyed, and the kingdom shall not be left to other people, but it shall break in pieces and consume all these kingdoms, and it shall stand forever.
Yeah, and that's what we're seeing right now, man, the translation of kingdoms, man. Hey, because the difference that's going to be, you know, had with the kingdom of heaven, it's never going to fall, man. Because with different, with empires falling, you know, coming to the end of, you know, these different empires, what's the first thing that happened? Their currency began to crash, you know, uprising of the people, things like that. You know, this is what we're seeing at the end of a kingdom. That's what we're ultimately. That's the signs of the end of a kingdom, man.
Yeah,
you
decadency.
Yep. Ultimately,
immorality.
Immorality. The leaders cannot control the masses of the people, man.
Division.
You know? Division.
Military spread too thin.
Yep. And this is what happening. It's what happening to America right now, man. They're ultimately battling in all fronts. They're over here in South America, over here in the so-called Middle East, over here in Europe. It's spreading too thin, man. You know.
Right.
And this is what we see at the end of a kingdom, man. So you had that, boy. So with that being said, we hope this lesson was edifying. We want to end up by giving all praise, honor, glory to YAHAWAH, BAHASHAM, YAHAWASHI, BAHASHAM, QADASH. Double honors to the elders and the apostles of great millstone that taught us the truth. And salutations to the hopeful elect that's around the four corners of the globe. Lord, when we hope this lesson was edifying. Till next time, YAHAWAH, YASHARAHLA, Shalom, and the Baba Ball.
Shalom, YAHAWAH,
YASHARAHLA, Baba Ball.